Hello, I'm Sarah Seidelman, and welcome to the Hummingbird interview series, where I introduce you to people that I think you will want to know. And I want to introduce, I'm super excited to have Michelle Wolf here with me today from WolfSkull Creative. And Michelle is an amazing portrait photographer who I got to know a few years ago, and I just am excited to have her here today. So, Michelle, welcome.
Hello.
I am a huge fan of your work, and I love how, there's a lot of portrait photographers out there in the world, but the images that you capture are so authentic and real, and they really draw me in. They feel like art. And I'm just wondering if you can tell us a little bit, like, how did you get started? Like, when did you first take your first picture, or where did this all start for you?
Actually, someone just asked me this the other day, so I have an answer. Um, I think it was maybe like fourth grade at Girl Scout camp. Like your parents would always send you with a disposable camera. And like usually I just fly through it in like the first hour of being at Girl Scout camp. And then one year, probably around fourth grade, I actually like set my friends up in like little spots. A field for one person and buy some flowers for another person. And I remember getting that roll of film back and being like, whoa, this is like the pictures and picture frames. And so that was really what I remembered liking photography as like a way of expressing myself artfully.
Mhm.
Um, and then after that, taking like darkroom wet lab classes in junior high a couple years later, and my dad giving me a Pentax Spotmatic Asahi, Pentax Asahi Spotmatic. It was
Okay.
an old film camera, real heavy. And I used that until the gears wore out in it just a few years ago.
Wow. Amazing. And how did the, like, like, I'm just curious, like, how did the Girl Scouts feel about the photos you took of them? Or like, did that have something to do with it, like the subjects as well?
Well, I don't know what they thought of them because this was, fourth grade. Must have been in the mid to late 90s for me. So image sharing wasn't really something I could do. And some of those girls I only saw once a year. So
So that wasn't
I
even a
know.
possibility. And
I
now
didn't know
with
them. Yeah.
Instagram, like, you can share things all the time. So as it evolved, like, was there a moment when you knew, like, this is something, like, this is who I am an artist, or maybe you don't even call it, I don't know what you refer to yourself as, but is there a moment where you knew, like, this is really what I want to do with my life?
Um, I was always kind of an artfully inclined kid. It was what I excelled at school. And I wouldn't really say there was a moment where I knew, but it was just always something that I gravitated towards. So there was never really a question. Um, it's what I like to do, and people responded to it. And that was motivating for me.
Awesome. Tell us about, like, what is one of your favorite sessions that you were ever part of, and just a little bit more about why it was so amazing, or maybe how the end result of it or something.
Actually, your session is one of my favorite ones. That was one that I stepped back from and thought these are some of the most powerful images I've ever made in my career. With you and your friend at the beach. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit and introduce what that shoot was.
Absolutely, yes. So years ago, somehow I got added to a private group on Facebook that was sharing boudoir photography. And I'm sure for those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically these sort of sensual, very intimate portraits taken typically of women, but I think men and women and couples are doing them too, for the purpose of the pleasure of the person, the subject of the photography session, or maybe their partner. And I remember I was so triggered by these photos because I was like, oh, like, these people are, well, first of all, it seems so vulnerable to be putting these photos of yourself out on Facebook, even though it was a private group. And then I think part of me was like reacting to the way the photos, they reminded me of like Victoria's Secret lingerie shoots or something like that. And I thought, I don't resonate. But I think what really worried me about that is like, oh my God, like, am I sexy? If this is what sexy is or powerful is, because the women definitely were experiencing this empowering moment, you could tell from the photos and all the comments that were being made. Anyway, I talked to a bunch of people. Finally, a friend said, well, we should just get naked pictures taken of ourselves and see how we feel about it. And I was like, that is a genius idea. And then I was like, you were the first person that came to mind. He's like, you're a person who I know like creates wonderful, just safe space for the portraits. And, and you had photos taken before. Yeah. So talk about that shoot a little bit. And I mean, I can jump in too, but I'm curious from your standpoint.
Well, it was just so fun. You inquired right after I had gotten into a little bit of trouble for tanning at the beach. And one second. Sorry. Dad, can you come back in a little bit?
COVID interview problems.
Yeah. Can we start that question over?
Yes. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that beach session with myself and my other friend who participated in that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So to preface it from my end, so I had just kind of gotten into a little bit of trouble at the beach for tanning topless, which was something that I had been doing for years and years. When you inquired about those photos, I just thought it was such perfect timing, and had just done a session with another woman who wanted to be topless in a public place. And this was a conversation that we were all starting to have about separating nudity from sex and the importance of that with the way that we identify and like the way that legislation is not set up to protect us in any way. There's a big, I don't know, there's a lot of inequality there. And I think that your photos really helped express some of those concerns where there was nothing inherently sexual about the photos that we did. It was just women in their bodies in the same capacity as a man. And you also brought in this like really great spiritual aspect that I really appreciated, where we were at the beach as the sun came up and it was so misty and you were kind of in this dewy like tall grass and the sand just had so much light and texture to it. See, this is what I was talking about, where I can't come full circle on my thoughts.
Well, I'll just add to that. Yeah, it was a magical morning and it was like this, I'd imagine the sun coming up and it being clear, but actually it was very misty and it felt kind of almost protective because there's something about being vulnerable and like taking your clothes off. Well, especially when you're in a public place and you don't know who's going to stumble on by and find you. But yes, I think that is exactly, I think my triggering from seeing the boudoir photography, what you're saying is like, I somehow wanted to understand, I wasn't interested in being, I don't even it's still so deep for me. I'm not sure, but all I know is that when you took those photographs, that morning was so special. We felt so safe and it felt really empowering. And then when we saw the photos, my friend and I were just like, oh, it was just everything that I ever wanted. And it just showed us, being in, and maybe I'll add some to this post or something, but just showed us being in nature, like connected to everything. And to me, that's power. I mean, Mother Earth is like, to me, the ultimate sex goddess, right? I mean, she's what makes all sex possible and, how we all got here. So, like, so that helped you. So as an artist, talk about, or maybe share with me, like, I know you mentioned after getting in trouble with the law a little bit and, you were in the papers for topless sunbathing and speaking out against the fact that why can't women take off their tops? Just like all this stuff about why can't women breastfeed? And there's been such a hullabaloo about that. And it's like, what is wrong with our tops?
Yeah.
And somebody said to you, you're going to ruin your business if you make a deal out, or if you post these pictures of yourself on the beach. Was that right? Somebody said.
It was more people responding to the story about how it was going to be bad for business. I could have declined interviews and I could have not spoken about my experience, and I did. And obviously, like, my name is associated with my Instagram account, so people kind of, I think, wanted to know more about me, so they were seeking me on Facebook and Instagram. And yes, most of the responses, most of the feedback I got from people was completely positive, but I read the comments and sometimes they say you're not supposed to, and I was really unfazed by them So I wasn't worried about business being affected by it at all, but I read it and I was just kind of like, yeah, we'll see. And then instead I got inquiries specifically about it. So that just made me feel, I guess, hopeful. And, you know, the content of what we did for youth just spoke so much to um, the experience that I had. And it was really great to have people want photos done of them in that way.
Yeah, and I talked yesterday with my good friend we were just sharing how those photos that you took of us, what those meant to us, and I was just saying to her that they really helped me to just utterly accept and see myself as beautiful and powerful in the
Yeah.
context of, this greater whole, and she shared that they basically helped her to come home to herself, and I thought, what greater compliment can you get from your art, from your work? It's like to have it bring people home to themselves. What other experiences have you had with clients? I mean, maybe not people, maybe people don't share how they feel. I know also my professional photos that you've taken always just made me feel like, yeah, that's exactly how I want to be represented, because I think they just represent me, not airbrush me, not me all shiny and perfect, but just me. Well,
Um,
hair's pretty perfect because I guess I worked at it pretty hard that day.
um, I guess just when anyone gets in touch with me, I think it's because, or if anyone gets in touch for photos, I think it's usually because they've seen something that's inspired them, whether it's in a magazine or on Instagram or on a blog. You know, it could be for family photos or for a headshot, and they just think like, I really like the way that this was done. Now I want to get my photo taken. And I just really want to give them something that makes them feel like, oh my God, I could have been on that blog. Like this photo makes me feel like the other things that I'm seeing. I don't, it's hard to put into words, but I just want people to feel like they were in like a Vanity Fair photo shoot when they get it back.
Yeah, like this is like high art. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. And speaking of Vanity Fair photo shoots, like, okay, so if you could sit down or spend the day with any photographer, portrait photographer, who would you spend the day with, or who's your hero?
Yeah, I love Annie Leibovitz. I love her work. I've got a few of her books and also Art Kane, who's not alive anymore, but his work is extremely powerful too. He did a lot of fashion and rock and roll. Um, and I'll use those images by these people when I'm working on art direction with, like, let's say a musician who doesn't know how they want to represent themselves. My feet are falling asleep. Don't know how they want to represent themselves in their marketing materials yet. I'll tell them like, go through all of your favorite records and pick out the covers that speak to you the most, and let's figure out why. And let's figure out if you have any patterns, like, oh, you're always leaning towards a profile shot. You know, you really like a far away angle where you can see a lot of the surroundings, and sending
Real
them as much
cool.
content as I can. Yeah.
Yeah, so you help them to discover their I don't want to say, I don't want to use the word brand, but their authentic, how they want to, yeah, how do they want to be
I think it's
represented?
still a brand. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. Um, what kind of fears do you bump up against as an artist? Or have you, like, and how have you gotten through those things?
You know, a really common one is imposter syndrome. It's like when I started out in the photography business, it felt really fraudulent to get paid to do this, especially to like charge what I do. I just it took a while, and now I kind of experience that also since I've accepted the term artist. I guess I felt like since I didn't have more of like an artful intention with the work that I made, that maybe I wasn't an artist. And it wasn't until I applied for a grant through the Arrowhead Regional Arts Board that, or Arts Council, and they accepted my proposal, that I realized like a panel of people that work in the arts just sat down and looked at my resume and my work sample, and they've decided to grant me this. I am an artist. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
I love that well, two parts there. I mean, I love that just getting paid is almost like, it's almost like, oh, this should be illegal or something. There's this feeling.
Yeah, I enjoy this. Why am I getting paid?
It's so much fun. So guys, if you're listening to this and you hate what you're doing, it's like there is another way. I remember the first check that I got paid for life coaching, when I left medicine, I went screaming around the house. My kids were really young at the time. My son was like, "Are we rich?" And I was just like, yes, like in a
Yeah.
way we are, like
Yes.
it's amazing. Because that's rich, getting paid to do what you absolutely love, and it benefits everybody. And then that acceptance of ourselves as an artist, it's like at some point, we have to, claim that title or
Mhm.
claim that role fully. Tell me about, like, in your wildest dreams, like what would be a dream project for you if the phone rang today and they said, "Hey, come in. we've got a crew for you and everything's paid, all expenses paid, and here's what we want you to shoot."
Oh my God, I don't know. So many things come to mind. Um,
Just tell us one of them.
I would love, it's kind of like what you described, but I would love to go on the road with a band right now. Well, I mean, obviously not right now in this pandemic.
Right.
I bet that's not possible. But coming out of it, that's really what I would look forward to doing. That would be the dream call.
Super cool.
It would be a little bit more documentary like,
Yeah.
but I love putting together a concept for a shoot, even on the fly. So I would love working with musicians, and I really think that that's what I want to do next.
Beautiful. Ooh,
Yeah.
I love that. I can see like the little snippets and all the great documentaries that have just come out, that are just coming out. It's like so fun, or the little snippets that are, from those touring moments, and on the road and in the vehicle, like stuffing down hamburgers or whatever everybody's doing. Yeah, love it. Um, what was I going to ask? How do you like take care of your creative gift? Like, how do you make sure, like, I always think, when we have a special gift that we have, like, we have to be careful because we can be asked to do lots of things. And maybe not all those things are nourishing for that or respectful of that gift that we have.
Mhm.
How do you take care of your creative gift? How do you nourish it, feed it, care for it?
Well, I kind of like what you just mentioned about like um, kind of being selective of the projects that you do, especially if you're like getting started. Projects will come your way that aren't for you at all, and it's good to say no to them. Because some projects will just like suck your soul, and some of them like you're gonna fail at because it's not what you do well. If someone wanted photos of like everyone coming to an event inside of a theater and you're a natural light photographer, it's probably not a good idea to just go buy a flash and give that a whirl. The client won't be happy. You're going to be stressed out the entire time. It's not going to contribute to your body of work. And there's someone out there that is going to be really good at that, and they should have that project. Um, I know for the longest time, I like resisted weddings and those sorts of photos just because I didn't want to sacrifice all of my summer weekends, especially up in Duluth when, it's why we endure 9 months of winter. Um, but then realizing that there was a way that I could make weddings and engagements and elopements still something artful, which all wedding photographers are already doing. It just, I think, took me longer to realize that. Um,
That you could do it your way.
yeah, yeah. So I guess, the first part, like I said, just identifying which projects to say no to, and to finding a way to maybe use creative problem solving to make something work for you.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do
Yeah.
that with a wedding, though. You should definitely just, oh man, what am I trying to say? All right, is this one
Well,
making?
I think it's great. I think it's just, well, it's a process. It's
Yeah.
like, I think sometimes we have to take on those things that we're like, yeah, maybe I could do. I remember, I've taken gigs where I'm like, sure, I'll come to your fill in the blank event and perform a fill in the blank service. There's this feeling, this sinking feeling, like the minute I said yes to that, like, oops, maybe that, and then
Yeah.
you get there and you realize you get through it, you do it, and you grow and you learn. And then the next time the phone rings and somebody says something, or you just get clear, like I have a sheet on my desk that, says, does it this, does it this, does it hit these boxes? And if it does, yes,
Yeah.
and if it doesn't, also, you know, hit pause, and sometimes I just say, oh, can I get back to you? Like I have to check my schedule, or, you know, I'm not so good at that because I'm quite impulsive. But yeah, I think that's great. I love your answer. Um, what else did I want? Oh, I know what I wanted to ask. What advice do you have to a creative, a person who's maybe watching this and is like, I would love to get out and get paid to do what I love, or I would love to start doing photography as an artful business, or maybe they're, you know, they've been wounded as an artist and told they can't, you know, do what they want to do. Like, what advice do you have to creatives out there?
Um, let's see. I guess keep your inspiration close to you and accessible all the time.
How do you
Um,
do that?
I keep like magazines around, and I'll you can always like make Pinterest boards of all the ideas that you have, but I like to keep magazines and art books and just kind of like dog ear them so I can just go back and look at something that inspires me and remember like, oh, that's right, I really wanted to do something kind of about this. And that just kind of gets the creative wheels turning again. Um, also, oh man, this is always a hard question to answer.
I think that's what you just gave us is awesome. And it made me think of, I remember asking you one time, like, if you were going to get, just as we were leaving the beach, after Michelle had taken these wonderful sort of half semi-nude photos of my friend and I, and we'd had this amazing morning. I was like, what would you do? Like, if you could have photos taken by an amazing photographer like you, like, what would you do? And you told me at that morning what
Lady
sounded funny.
Godiva, yeah.
Tell us what that vision is.
I don't know. I just want to be like on a horse. And actually, this came from, like I said, a photo. I think it was like Arnold Schwarzenegger by, I don't think it was Annie Leibovitz, but he's like on this horse and he's just so broad chested and he's wearing this like tight white shirt. And I think you can like kind of see his nipples or something. And he's just kind of like half turned and he just like looks so powerful. And I was like, his chest is bigger than mine. And like, you know, if I was topless on a horse, that would be so much like Lady Godiva. And at the time that you were talking about it, I think I had this like long flowing blonde hair that I also kind of saw in the shoot. I think my extensions came out like a week later, so I kind of felt
So that
staying with the hair. But yeah, and then there was another photo of Arnold Schwarzenegger like kind of on skis where it was the same thing was happening. He had this like white shirt on and he was just kind of like looking off into the distance. And I don't know why it's photos of him that stand out, but like I guess Annie Leibovitz shot him a lot, so like I kept seeing them.
I love
And
it.
and that's kind of added to the sort of like bucket list of photos that I have, whether or not it's me in them that I would like to take. Um, yeah.
Do you have a photo of yourself that somebody else took of you that makes you feel powerful or good?
You know, I was doing a shoot for Adeline in Duluth, who's a hairstylist, and I was going to be the photographer, but I was also going to be in one of the photos. So I shot everyone, and everyone had their hair done all beautiful, and like I just gotten these like really long blonde extensions, and she took a photo of me from that shoot. I set up the shot, and I'm wearing like this leopard print turtleneck and I've got all of this long blonde hair and I don't know, I felt really powerful in that photo. I really like that one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, photography certainly is a tool of awesomeness for, yeah, for self-reflection. And I'm so glad you do what you do. So if somebody who's listening is, maybe they're in Minnesota and they want to get in touch with you, or maybe they're somewhere and they want to fly you in to take their photos, or, you know, like, how would we get in touch with you and tell us about, yeah, where you're located and everything? You're on the web, of course.
On the web, online at wolfskullcreative.com. You can submit through my website. Otherwise, I'm really active on Instagram. I'm always checking my DMs and conversing with people on there about different ideas. So feel free to reach out. And right now I'm really serving like the Duluth and Minneapolis area, but especially once the pandemic winds down, I'm looking forward to being on the road more.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for being here and
Oh,
doing what
thanks
you
so much for
do
having
and
me.
and following that passion that you had, that girl that you knew about in Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you for being here.
So good to see you.